This podcast contains potentially sensitive topics, including strong language and conditions of human suffering. Listener discretion is advised. There is also a passing reference to suicide. If you yourself are struggling with suicidal thoughts, we want you to know you're not alone. Dial or SMS 988 if you need to speak to someone.
I'm just confused and I want to be mad, but I'm just more like sad than anything else. And me going up and screaming at people and telling them how idiotic they are about their choices, it's not going to do anything but put me in jail. I understand that, so I'm not really trying to do that. But I wish I could look at the person who's in charge of this and ask them, what was your end goal? Why are you doing this? What are you hoping to accomplish? How does this make you feel like you've done something good? If you came here and you saw all the hopelessness and the sorrow on people's face, if that person actually had to see.
I'm Rex Holbein, and in this episode of You Know Me Now, we'll be discussing the controversial government policy of sweeps. If you're not familiar with the term, a sweep is the forced disbanding of a homeless encampment on public property. The act of sweeping is typically performed by a combination of police, tow trucks, dumpster trucks, and any other needed government agency to accomplish the task. For example, when parks are involved, often the Parks Department is included. During a sweep, all individuals, regardless of their circumstance or condition, along with all of their personal property, are removed from the area. Now this sounds fairly straightforward. Government removing people and belongings from locations where laws have made it illegal to reside. Sweeps are often set into motion when individuals in business and residential neighborhoods complain that the laws are not being enforced. In short, homed individuals reach a tipping point and want something done. This seems reasonable. I think everyone can sympathize with those that have been impacted by a homeless encampment, either near their business, out front of their home, or in the park that they enjoy. It is clearly unfair that the impact of homelessness should be felt by a few when it is, in fact, a larger community issue and responsibility. However, sweeps as a solution have not proven to be an answer to or even a path towards addressing homelessness. Yes, they provide immediate relief to those being impacted, but the issue itself is not being resolved by sweeping, only swept to a new location where another neighborhood is then impacted. There is an abundance of information around homelessness, and this includes information about sweeps. Most of it comes in the form of collected data around programs, policies, services, resources, and, oh yes, budgets. What gets missed in all of the data is the human being being swept. Nobody is measuring increased levels of trauma or how many steps back are taken in what is already a difficult path to move forward on for those struggling with homelessness. It is absolutely accurate to say sweeps are conducted to benefit the homed, not the homeless. In a situation where people are illegally living on public land, why should our policies and programs be structured to benefit them? What's wrong with sweeps just benefiting those living legally? To quote many folks living outside, when told by the police or the Parks Department or even groups of citizens to just move along, they often answer with, "Move along to where?" One of the fundamental flaws with sweeps is that there is no safe place to be swept to. All the land is spoken for. When housing is offered, often it ends up being unavailable or unsuitable to that person's real needs. It is also important to remember that each person living on the street has a profound and true story of why they are there. nobody just chooses homelessness. Often, beginning very early in childhood, some form of trauma is experienced, knocking them off their life path. While most of us move forward on our journey, working to fulfill our hopes and dreams, those who have been traumatized spend a great deal of time just getting back to the start line, just trying to survive. For this reason alone, we owe it to those struggling on our streets. If we're going to address homelessness in a meaningful way, our programs need to also fit the needs of the homeless, not just the homed. Our actions must be thoughtful and sensitive to not only do no harm, but to also actively provide paths forward. This begins by listening to those living on our streets. In this episode, you'll hear from people who have recent first-hand experience of what it's like to be swept. Also, we talked to a few very passionate folks from Stop the Sweeps Seattle, a mutual aid group who advocate for services over sweeps. Okay, so talking to Lily, and tell us where we're at and what's going on.
We are at the Stoneway encampment right next to Aurora.
125th.
125th.
And what's going on?
What's going on is there is an incredibly improper use of funds because the city has decided to sweep an area where there is a homeless encampment and it's out of the public's way. There's no houses back here. We're not in anybody's driveway. We're not on the streets.
Behind the wrecking yard.
It's behind the wrecking yard, and we're not bothering anybody. So I'm not really sure why they decided to upheave everybody's life, but I mean, it's already hard enough as it is. Being unhoused and then having to deal with being uprooted, every few days is extremely mentally detrimental. I mean, it makes things that are hard even harder.
On a sunny August day, I find myself standing next to Lily on a skinny strip of land running north and south, about 3 blocks long and 50 feet wide. To the west is a chain-link fence with a wrecking yard and golf driving range behind, and to the east is a green hillside buffer with a mobile home park located above it. We are in North Seattle, just off Highway 99, and it is dusty and hot. Lily is absolutely frantic. The whole scene before us is chaotic. Our conversation is interrupted nearly every other sentence as Lily yells out to friends, checking in if they're okay or asking what they need. People are desperately working on their vehicles, trying to get them started. In fact, Lily and I, at one point, simultaneously moved to the back of a car to help push it onto a trailer as the guy there struggles to keep it from rolling backwards. Looking around, it's obvious that the police have a very heavy presence. I'm guessing in total, maybe 40, 50 officers are there. Most of them are just standing and watching the chaos. And I'm wondering, what are they thinking when they see all the upheaval of these lives? I'm assuming it must be difficult for them. Some officers are informing folks to come out of the RVs or tents, letting them know how much time they have left. A few others are directing traffic as people use tow ropes to pull out non-running vehicles. Tow trucks with flashing lights are towing derelict cars and RVs through a narrow dirt road that runs all through this piece of land. There is a real sense of desperation as people try to salvage what they can of their belongings. City workers are breaking down the makeshift structures, throwing everything into piles that will then be put into the back of dump trucks and taken away. A distraught man on a bike goes by. He has a backpack on, undoubtedly containing all of his personal belongings. Here and there are housed folks who belong to mutual aid groups and nonprofits. Some are talking to campers, bringing them coffee and snacks, and trying to figure out how they can help. I've seen this so many times and know that there's not much help that can be given at this point other than emotional care for those that you can connect with throughout all this chaos. One of the residents of this camp, named Cuba, planted a beautiful flower and vegetable garden along the hillside that will undoubtedly also be torn up. In the grand scheme of things, it was a small garden, but for this community, it was a big, big deal. I try not to get sucked in emotionally. I have to tell you, it's hard. All these people being uprooted will have a very difficult time in the coming weeks. There is a deep sense of loss. A good many people had created a community here, one that provided connection and safety, one where people were moving forward with their lives. Now it was being disrupted and dismantled. Coming back from visiting Cuba's garden, I find Lily again. She is leaning up against one of the abandoned cars, visibly shaken and upset.
Unfortunately, they decided that it was necessary to basically just fuck everything up for everybody. And it's crazy because, you know, I'm not even a politician. I'm not a accountant. I don't deal with distributing funds for the state or the city, but I know that it's frankly idiotic to have to pay this many police officers for their time, all the tows that they're gonna have to pay for, all the cleanup, when people are just going to take all of the, let's see, air quote, mess and all of the air quote, what would you call it, miscreant behavior, and we're going to take it away from where it's not bothering anybody, not on anybody's, you know, sidewalk where their kids are trying to play, and you're going to move it in front of, you know, somebody's house.
It's not accomplishing anything other than setting everybody back again, is what you're saying.
It's not just, you know, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. This is more like 10 steps back, 1 step forward. Oh wait, this is not even a step forward. This is just costing money, causing trauma, costing money, and not doing a damn thing to help anybody.
Well, at the minimum, there's all of the cause and effect, right? You push this many people out of this location. Where are all these people going to go? And under another level of stress.
I don't see any housing out here, do you? Do you see any housing?
Was any housing offered to,
No.
to people here?
No,
Nobody
and when
came
they
up.
swept behind Lowe's, you want to know how many people got housing? 2 people.
Out of
50. Taking the messes that unhoused people, like if they don't have a place to put things, they're going to put them outside their RV. It's going to make a mess. So they're going to clean up that mess. They're going to have a bunch of calls. There's people, there's garbage. They're loud, yada yada. I can't sleep. Oh my God. And there's going to be, just like I said, there's going to be a bunch of hysterical people over loud music at night. And they could have just left us back here. Congratulations.
how many people are out here, do you think, in this village?
They said it was 25, but that's incorrect. There's about 100 people back here. So there's going to be 100 people that are sitting in front of your house doing a bunch of things that you do not want to see. You don't want to see people working on their cars at 3 o'clock in the morning, using power tools, being loud, playing music. We're a lot of night owls. And, well, all you early birds are going to turn into some permanently exhausted pigeons because you're not going to get any sleep.
What do you think is going to happen to all these 100 people now? Where are they going to go? Do they even know?
They don't know, but they are going to be in front of the community's, like I said, doorstep.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of police calls. There's going to be a lot of upset. There's going to be a lot of moms and dads that are furious because they're not getting sleep. There's going to be a lot of wasted police resources and city resources. And when they could have just used it for housing, they're just, like I said, they're just being ignorant. And the power play that they think that they're doing is really, really, really ignorant, arrogant. There's not enough words that I could use.
Yeah. Why do you think this village was targeted? I mean, really, it is out of sight. It's not the typical spot that you might have a host of residential neighbors or businesses calling. Why do you think this village was targeted this time?
Because they can. They don't like people that are unconventionally housed. When you are unhoused, you have really a target on your back where people treat you with disdain. They belittle you and view you as less than. When I'm sorry to burst some people's bubbles, but if you lost your parents and you live at your parents' house and your parents weren't paying the mortgage and you just happen to have a room there, you're not quite as independent as you think, honey. You can end up in the same position as a lot of people out here. The amount of people that are living with family is incredibly high. So there's a lot of people that could end up in the same boat a lot sooner.
People on the edge.
Yeah, than they would like to admit.
You mentioned unconventional housing. Do you think, and I have had this thought often myself, do you think that the city needs to do a much better job of allowing for unconventional housing, like alternative forms, because we all are so different? You mentioned a lot of you are night owls, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the city should have a fabric of housing that accommodates, you know, villages like this, and co-housing and tents and villages and small structures and RVs? You think we should be a city, a fabric of many types of housing to meet all the different needs of people?
Yes, and until the higher ups and the people in charge of things just accept the fact that there's just some people who are a little different. There's some people that have had trauma and experiences in their childhood that was so damaging that they just can't conform to society's little square of what's supposed to be considered normal.
So basically what people are doing right now is they've got a certain amount of time before basically the police and the tow agencies are just going to pull everything out of here.
Yep.
What's the mood of people? Like, what are they angry? Are they just in work mode? Are they hurt? Or are some people gone and going to come back and find their stuff gone? What's going on?
Everybody is a combination. Nobody has time to be angry. Everybody's really just dazed, confused, and hopeless, kind of, because people are walking by on a bicycle with nothing but their backpack and a broken heart, really. There's a lot of people that put in hundreds of hours making what little they have a home, and it's being taken away from them.
There's a lot of built structures here.
Yeah, there's a lot of places where they have regular 2x4 structures that have been, covered with plywood. Their floors are hardwood floors with carpet. They have locking doors. They have air conditioning. They have heaters. I mean, like, these are actual, like, tiny homes that people have built. I mean, there's fruit and vegetable gardens that were built, and they're just gonna tear it all up and throw it away.
Was this village visited by services? Did Reach and other nonprofits come out here and try to provide services?
The only thing that really... Okay, so the medical van came one time in the year that I've been around here. One time in a year.
Yeah. That's the interval.
That's crazy.
Once a year.
It's crazy. If they came every... They don't even have to come every month. Every, 2-3 months, that would be a lot better,
Do you think, out of curiosity, my wife's a nurse, do you think if there was a handful of nurses that went from village to village, that would be helpful? I mean,
absolutely.
Do people need that type of...
They do, because there's a lot of people, we're talking about people that are they're struggling to get by. So there is, run-ins here and there with the law. And so they are afraid to go to hospitals. And so they're not getting the care that they need. And when somebody is afraid to go to the hospital, this is so gross, but like some people have like infections, like staph infection, and they get like sores, and then, they'll give it to other people. Like I had to go to the doctor, 2-3 times because I was helping people, and, I got infections that had to be treated with antibiotics because I was helping someone else. And I have the, wherewithal and ability to go to the hospital, but I guess some people don't.
Yeah. Did the village function as a community? Did people get along? Did they help each other?
Absolutely. Like, it did take a while, but it got to a atmosphere where, how there's the typical, go to the neighbors and borrow a cup of sugar, and that was a normal
Great
thing.
poupon.
It really happened, and it happened every day. We talked to our neighbors every day.
Were there troublemakers?
Of course.
There always are.
Always.
But the community was dealing with that.
Honestly, there was sometimes love-hate relationship, but there was more love than anything else. And when people needed help, people came together as a community. And you don't see that. You don't see that in regular society. People walk by their neighbors with their nose in the air and acted like really nobody matters, like they don't exist. People stop being people. It's if you have currency, then you're accepted. But if you don't, then you're less than garbage. And it's disgusting.
And what about the rest of the people living here? What percentage do you think work at this job or that job, whatever?
So there's a lot of people that are self-employed. Like there's a few people where they have, a truck, so they do the pallet business where they pick up pallets, and they get like $7 a pallet or something. So 100 pallets is $700. So they'll do that. And that's actually not bad. And then there's people where, like I said, a lot more people than you would think actually have trades as electricians or mechanics or carpentry. So, people just do what they would normally do on a different schedule.
So they're just constantly looking for side jobs, labor ready, and things like that.
There's girls out here who are pregnant, busting their ass on Aurora, just trying to make it work. And yeah, there's a lot of addiction, but addiction is generally because people are self-medicating from trauma that they don't want to face. Shit, my dad committed suicide. August 27th is going to be 2 years, and I still... Like, I never did opiates before for 27 years, and now, like, I told myself I would never, but now I just almost don't care.
Do people in a village such as this, most of which, as you're saying, are suffering from some form of trauma, do they do a reasonably good job of being there for each other, or are people so consumed by their own trauma that it's difficult to do that?
Absolutely not. They're absolutely there for their neighbors. Somebody's sick, somebody helps them. Somebody needs food, they give them food. Somebody needs water, they give them water.
What about emotional support? Do they have the bandwidth for that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they do. They will, they have, and they will in the future. If I am walking by and I'm struggling with something internally, I'll literally have 5 or 6 people stop me and say, "Hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk? I'm here for you." do you need anything? And no, if I lived over, when I lived over at 2000 Alaskan Way on the waterfront, it was almost $1 million condo. I didn't have one person stop and ask, hello, are you okay? How are you doing? Never.
Your words sure resonate with me. I mean, it's like you're speaking a deep truth, and I don't know that our society is even close to wanting to hear that at this point.
That would
we're so
mean
money-centric.
that would mean that someone would have to stop and think, okay, instead of just focusing on making sure that I have excess, that I make sure that my neighbors have essentials. People don't want to do that. They'd rather have 100 extra things that they don't ever use than help somebody. And it's disgusting. Me as a person, like, I can look at myself in the mirror and I'm actually proud of the person that I am. Yes, I have issues. Yes, there's things that I need to work on, but I am working on them. But I know that I am one of the best people that I know. And that I love the person that I am. And like I said, I'm proud of me. I don't really know if there's a lot of people that can genuinely be honest with themselves and say that.
I think you're right.
Like, karmatically, how are you doing? Do you think that if the whole, pearly gates or whatever, heaven and hell, I don't know about all that, but like, I know that if there is such a thing, I know I'm good. I've made a few mistakes here and there. I'm human. It'd be ridiculous to say that I haven't, but I know without a doubt I've done more good than bad.
You know where your heart is.
Yeah. It's cruel to just uproot people. People that have had such extensive trauma that they can't function normally, and then tear away any sense of security that they had. It's like they're trying to make people commit suicide. They're trying to make people just crazier than they've ever been.
When I asked Lily what she is going to do next, where she's going to go, she tells me her boyfriend's mom just died. For now, they're going to be living in her mobile home. Another person I would like for you to meet and listen to is Danae. When I first met her 7 years ago, she was cruising down University Avenue in the U District on her skateboard with a sketchbook. She was just 19 years old, full of ideas. You wouldn't know it back then, but she was homeless. It hadn't visibly, physically taken from her yet. 2 years ago, when I met with her at her RV in the Sodo neighborhood, she was very ill from multiple infections and failing health due to heavy drug use. She couldn't even get up to walk. When I left her that day, I emotionally said goodbye to a friend I didn't think I would see again. Since then, though, Danae got herself off heroin through the methadone program, and recently, and unbelievably, she now has also quit taking methadone. She is totally drug-free. Her body has rewarded her by continually getting healthier and healthier. When we talked for this recording, she was all excited for a job interview she had at the end of the week. You could feel the belief she was finding in herself, in pulling herself up and out of homelessness. Sweeps come in like hurricanes. Everything not nailed down and secured is wiped away, gone. People living homeless spend every day preparing for that hurricane, worrying about keeping their head above water, never getting to the point of nailing things down. Regardless of the steps taken forward, the sweeps knock them back to a place of despair. Danae was caught up in the same sweep as Lily. In fact, over the last few months, she has been in a series of rapid-fire sweeps that have set her back significantly on her journey out of homelessness.
Yeah, since we talked last, a lot has happened.
Yeah, a lot has.
Can you tell me, I think, let's talk a little bit about sweeps, because, like the text message you sent me really described how much of a setback this has been. Can you just talk about sweeps, like how these sweeps have affected you?
From what I understand, they're required to offer alternative housing options. And now, alternative housing options could consist of like a tiny home or some other type of shelter or temporary housing option. But since the end of like the huge pandemic, they stopped offering housing options for people, but they continued doing this, or they started doing the sweeps again. It was stopped for a long time, because of COVID and stuff, but they started it up again. And I've had 4 or 5 spots swept now, since I think we spoke last.
Since you were at Lake Union.
Yeah. And I lost like a lot of momentum as far as moving forward with my life and my plans because of the sweeps, like I have to prepare myself, find another location to move to, help not only myself but my other I don't know, parking buddies or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. And my neighbors, I have to help them too because we're a community, and we rely on each other for stuff like that sometimes. And so, it's not like I just pack up my stuff and can just go. I feel an obligation and a responsibility to them, in a way to try to help them get into a safe location as well. So that takes up like a lot of time and effort. A lot of homeless people, as have a lot of stuff, and it's hard to get them to get rid of it. And I think that just comes from like, not having very much. So whatever you do have is so precious, You
got to hold on to.
Yeah. And anything that, that has a, like something connected to their past, they want to hold on to, that reminds them of who they once were. And it's a lot of psychological mind fuck when you're going through that because you get somewhat stable and you feel like, okay, now I can start getting my life a little bit in order. And just as you start to feel like things are coming together in the right place at the right time for you, you get this orange sticker. And the crazy thing is like the outreach people, they only come around right before the sweeps. They come like as soon as you see one of those outreach people coming through with snacks and goodies, whatever. It's not a good thing, man. It's not. That means
it's a harbinger.
You're fucked. That's the messenger.
You know what comes next.
Yeah, and I come to associate these people that think they're doing good with a really negative thing in my mind because it's true. Whenever they start to come around, I feel like in some way they have to be working with the cops, to coordinate, because they know about all the spots that people park at and stuff. And there is a small handful of people that aren't associated with them and that aren't involved in the sweeps, but a good portion of them are. And I just like to really stress to people that if you see those people coming around, be leery because they're probably not there to help you. They're probably there to help themselves and get rid of you, And I lost a lot, thousands of dollars in art supplies, canvas, paintings, I lost everything that I owned of my father's, after he died. I've lost 2 vehicles. Yeah, it's just been really hard trying to restart over and over and over again. It's hard to get anywhere.
And when you say it takes the wind out of your sails or kind of knocks you back down, I mean, I also want to say you were on a really beautiful upward climb. I mean, I know you were near death, right, with medical conditions and addiction, and you were moving through all of that and actually feeling like you were about to make some big strides.
Yeah, I felt like I was overcoming, some of my lifelong struggles, for once in my life, like I felt like I was going somewhere, and then just to have it all thrown out of whack all over again is just kind of disorienting. I'm starting to get my footing again, but it's just a matter of time before they sweep again. And now, mind you, I every time that I have been swept, I'm one of the first people that comes out and says, hey, I need help. Like, I want somewhere to go. I don't want this lifestyle anymore, and like, I need to do something, and I know that. And so I'm asking for help. You're trying to give it, but I'm not seeing results. I have yet to talk to anybody about coordinating any sort of housing options.
So Danae, can you walk me through this process of disconnection with regards to getting you help? So I want to set the table a little bit here by saying you've got a spot just before it's being swept. Help comes, they offer help. They say, hey Danae, we're with some organization, we want to see if we can get you some help. You tell them you want to get inside. What happens? Why does that not go somewhere? Do they not have the housing, or?
Well, that's the thing, is they say that, yeah, we've got a couple options for you. We've got two tiny homes open, one open in West Seattle, and the other one Capitol Hill, I think. And we have group shelters. And I was like, okay, and well, that's it. I don't feel comfortable being in a group shelter, and I feel like that's an unsafe environment for me, and for what little I do have, I can't have there.
And people that don't know really a lot about group shelters, can you explain why it's an unsafe situation for you?
Being a small female on my own, it's just dangerous in general, but with my health, because as you know, my kidneys were shutting down about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. And I was in really bad condition. Now my health has improved significantly, but I still am at risk of like any sort of infection or anything like that can blow up to be a huge deal for me, because that's what my kidney problems came from originally, was continued exposure to infection, as a result of like my heroin use. And there's a lot of people that have like nasty infections. I mean, I'm sure you've seen people with the zombie legs and stuff like that. It's scary.
Yep.
If I get something like that could potentially put me in a position where I end up on dialysis, and I'd rather not.
Yep, and you're still off of your heroin addiction.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really been awesome, actually.
You look great too. I mean, your whole persona has just grown, right, since those times. It's pretty beautiful to see.
Yeah, it's really nice that I get to experience life like without the nod or the infections or the pain or any of the struggles of being an addict anymore. It's been a huge blessing to me.
So you're not even on methadone now?
No.
You're just completely free?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta give you a high five on it. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been really great.
It kind of goes along with this feeling I've had about you since I met you, is that this is a young woman that can do anything she wants. I really believe that. And you're proving it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the group shelter, I've heard that from lots of people. Mm-hmm. There's a long list of why people don't go into group shelters. What about the tiny homes? What's not working for you in that?
I actually wouldn't mind a tiny home, but every time that they come and do the sweeps, they only have 1 or 2 tiny homes available. And those get, I was the first person in line on 3 separate occasions and still somehow didn't end up with any sort of, tiny home or anything like that. So I don't know what is going on. I think people are just like over promising, like they've got too many people and not enough resources.
Yeah. It's like musical chairs.
Yeah.
There's 12 people in 4 chairs.
I mean, if there's not enough resources and too many people are trying to coordinate, it just doesn't work. And that's what I've seen. I know that they're having a hard time figuring out how to deal with the homeless. I know they are. Okay, you can tell. There's been a lot of careless or progressive thinking people in government, state government or whatever, city council, whatever, lately, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think it's a very, it's not a very well thought out plan. The approach they're taking is not. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. Right now things are really bad in Seattle, and I don't see things getting any better anytime soon.
In the interim, while looking for solutions and finding that person or group of people, leaders that can use that money wisely, are sweeps, under any kind of view, are sweeps acceptable? I mean, does it make sense in any way? Or do you believe, like if you were mayor for the day, would you just stop sweeps completely?
I wouldn't stop them completely because I know things get out of control. Like, there was a safe parking lot at one point, and that got out of control, But if it was like more controlled, like the tiny homes, it could be a good thing. Like, I know tons of people that go out and they siphon gas and steal fucking tires off people's cars, and they just do that to be able to move, And so Billy Bob Joe Fred wakes up in the morning and his tires are gone, and he can't get to work and he gets fired. And now he can't feed his fucking kids or whatever. And that's just because this broke person needs a way to move their vehicle,
Because of the 72-hour rule.
Yeah, and if they don't move it, they lose everything they own. Once it goes into Lincoln Towing, it's screwed. You're never going to see anything that of value or that, you held dear to you in your home again, because people break in there all the time,
Yeah, and it becomes instantly unaffordable to get it back.
Yeah.
I mean, You're looking at, I think, right at the first day, you're in the $400 or $500 range, and then it goes up every day. Right?
And there's some programs that help people get their vehicles back, but like, realistically, to me, that just seems redundant and kind of stupid, honestly, because you're taking people's homes, but then you're going to put a program out there that's going to pay to give those homes back. So you're just trying to make that person's life inconvenient and to fuck up any sort of like good thing they have just to hurt them, is what it seems like to me. Because if you're going to give it back anyways, then just don't take it.
Yeah, what did it accomplish?
Yeah. Aside from, displacing somebody and moving the chaos, and that's what it's all about, I feel like, is like, they just want the chaos to continue, everybody's just been so, like, complacent about things, because they don't know what to do, right? That's the thing that really ticks me off about it, is you can't go to an encampment full of 20 or more people and say, I've got two houses for the whole lot of you. We're going to do a drawing,
Yeah.
Draw straws.
And the rest of you scatter.
Yeah. And, good luck getting your homes out of here in time, because we got tow trucks on the way, Sorry about your luck, bud. You drew the wrong straw. Like, that's not cool, man.
On that note, like, what is the heart of the problem? Like, at the very
at the very essence of it. What's not working in our society? Because clearly, right, it feels like a round peg in a square hole. Something's not. It's not for lack of wanting. I mean, I think if you look at all of community, nobody wants people to be suffering outside. But there is a disconnect. Like something's not quite right. What is it?
I think it stems from from early childhood and abuse, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, sexual, it doesn't matter. Abuse in general makes for a broken person, and that broken person will go through their life harming other people around them just to feel satisfied that they're not the only one suffering. I don't know a single female that's homeless that hasn't been sexually abused during their childhood. As a matter of fact, I don't know, I'd say probably 75 to maybe 85% of the men that I know that are homeless have been through the same thing. When you think about that, it doesn't sound real to somebody who's never been through that, but it is. It's a very prominent problem, and it's not, a lot of times it's shoved under the rug.
Although Lily and Danae's life story are each unique, as all of our stories are, their shared experiences around the trauma of having been swept is not unique. Far from it. In some form, sweeps have traumatized every person having been swept.
I just came into this situation because I was an in-home nurse, and I was, I lived there free per se, but I was taking care of a client.
And you were inside.
And, and so I didn't have to worry about, housing. I had a home, but she passed away by old age. And of course, all that all the free home that goes with it,
Yep.
So I ended up homeless because I don't make enough for housing, and so it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
This is Kimberly. At the time, she was living in a tent by Green Lake facing a scheduled sweep that was just a few days away.
I grew up in Grays River, Washington. It's up by Astoria. If you blink, you miss it. Because when I used to live there, it hardly any homes. There was all cattle. I was severely abused and molested, and all the gory stuff that happens to a child per se happened to me. But I was a single mother raising 3 children. I had 2 severe strokes when I was 26 weeks pregnant with my second child. So it's kind of like I had to deal with a lot of issues.
I've only met you a handful of times, right? But every time I see you, you're like a really upbeat person. Is that true? I mean, you have good energy. You have good positive energy.
Yeah, I try. Because life is only given to you one time.
Yeah.
And you have to take it as you can, and I'd rather be positive than negative. So I am an upbeat person, and there's days that I'm not, because I'm dealing with cancer. I'm dealing with spinal stenosis. There's things that I have to cope with. So there's days that I'm just a royal yeah.
What kind of cancer are you dealing with?
I had kidney cancer. They took my my left kidney, and esophagus cancer, and it had to do with that acid reflux medication.
I want us to pause for a moment to reflect on what we have heard so far from Lily, Danae, and Kimberly. Each is on a journey of trying to move their life forward, up and over obstacles with whatever available means are at hand. It should sound familiar because it's what we're all trying to do with our lives. There are no exceptions to this. We are all trying to do the best we can. Now, the easy assumption or judgment is that folks who are not producing or not moving ahead in life based on society standards are lazy, or they don't care, and they choose homelessness. The truth is that every person does care and does want their life to be the best it can. We know this because with the zillions of decisions we all face every day, we all choose what we think is the best for us at that moment. Nobody purposely chooses to make their life harder or to bring more suffering upon themselves. What makes it complicated to understand when considering another person's journey is that each of us have differing available options for moving forward. For those suffering from trauma, this list of available options becomes very small. I asked Kimberly what she wanted you, the listener, to know about her situation.
So it's like, I'm not homeless because I'm irresponsible or a major drug addict. I mean, I understand there's a lot of people here that have mental issues, physical issues, struggles with things, but these other people out here that gripe about stuff that, oh, I want my park back. I was appalled when I seen these fluorescent pink postboards stuck on these signs down there stating that we're polluting the lake, we're destroying this and destroying that. And I'm like, they're segregating us and not knowing the facts and the reasons why these people are here. I mean, I'm here because I can't afford the rent. I'm on SSI now because I have cancer and I have spinal stenosis, so I can't work anymore. I can't afford the rent here. It's impossible. Even with 2 incomes that are the same amount, we still can't afford it. It's impossible.
Gotten crazy.
It's so bad because everything is going up. So that's why we're in this predicament. That's why a lot of it. I mean, there's people here that work daily, goes to their job, but they don't make enough to live in a home. I mean, and there's people that has issues that they can't. They struggle, and they end up doing drugs and stuff like that to
cope and get by.
Yeah, to cope. It's a cycle, and these people that don't know that, and they already put their 2 cents into it and not wanting to understand the situation. But then I understand what they're going through too, because they need to pick up their things. They need to not leave needles around. They need to make sure that their surroundings are very proper and nice and make it containable, not gross and bring in a whole bunch of garbage. I understand their views because they see that, but that's the only thing they see. They don't see other reasonings. They don't understand the reasonings why. They just take it out of concept and just goes forth, and that's what pisses me off. Find out the reasonings why instead of already just putting up, knowing you don't know. And then I understand both things. Is that I understand what they see, and I understand what they see. A couple of these people, they can't get a job because they screwed up when they were younger and got felonies. Well, because of that reasoning, and they want to better their lives and carry on, they can't because they screwed up.
Yeah, it's a
but
monkey.
Now they can't get something because it's on their record. So of course now because they can't do it, it's a mental trip. It's a depression because I can't succeed in life because they won't give me a chance. So then they're going to be depressed, and there's a cycle.
It's a predictable path. If you take somebody's ability to move forward away, what do you expect?
Exactly. What do you expect? And of course, these people don't see that.
Fortunately, there are those that do see past the stereotypes and have banded together to form mutual aid groups to help their fellow neighbors. They see the inequality and the broken systems around us and are trying to develop grassroots networks of people helping people. One such group is Stop the Sweeps Seattle. I had a chance to sit down with 2 members of the group to discuss how they see the situation and what motivates them to help. Both folks you hear wish to remain anonymous.
It's one of those things that people in Stop the Sweeps always say, when you go to one sweep and it hits you, you can't stop going. I don't think I knew what sweeps were prior to actually going to one. I don't even remember how I got involved. I just remember someone being like, this big thing's happening. I live down the street in my micro studio. I was like, okay, let me see how it was. And just the violence of the police, like 30, 40 bike cops, racing through Ballard Commons, harassing people. People were just waking up. They seemed really out of it. But I remember nobody brought food or anything. It was just like these people who I'd just kind of met up with had brought some like water. Some friends had brought harm reduction supplies because they were going there regularly. Once I had gone to one, I don't know, I got hooked up with some people through like different messaging apps, and I just started continuously going to them. But it wasn't until like February of this year where I actually like hooked up with Stop the Sweeps as like a semi-organized kind of situation to actually start going to sweeps in a more organized way. And it's just, it's something that you can't really stop doing once you recognize
You can't unsee it.
People don't even bring water on the hottest days. Service providers don't do it. The cops definitely aren't doing it. That's the most important thing we should be doing for each other, is like taking care of our most basic needs, even if we don't know how to like deal with the context of it. Because I had no idea how often we did sweeps when we first happened. I thought that was like a major deal. Like the city was sweeping. This was like all alerts. And then I find out they're doing it every day, every other day. And that was when it was in a dip during the pandemic under Durkin, when they were doing it less regularly than usual.
Yeah, because of COVID.
Yeah, because of COVID, they had stopped doing it kind of, but we're still doing it. So I couldn't even imagine that this was happening in the background of the city that I would like go clubbing in, that they were happening even more regularly. And so, since like February of this year, I've been like very heavily involved in organizing to support folks. Because I do see the impact on the people that we talk to, even if we never see them again. I think even in that moment it matters. I don't think it's going to solve homelessness, but I do think it alleviates despair just a little bit in that moment, to be like a human being is looking at me and seeing me and not just trying to throw me away.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's 2 sides to it. One is the effect that humanizing has for the person that has been dehumanized, and humanizing also as the effect that it has on people who are dehumanizing others. Both sides, it's important for both sides, right? Because I think if we keep dehumanizing, people just aren't going to get involved. That's what we do for all wars, right? Before we attack a country, we dehumanize them, and then we all feel okay about it for some bizarre reason.
I'm a first-generation immigrant, although I did grow up in the States from a very young age, and so I grew up in like this whole like, oh, the United States, the roads are paved in gold, and this is like land of the free and all of that. So I grew up believing like, oh yeah, I could finally vote, and this, I'm doing my part, and this is all that I have to do. And I'm obviously learning in the last several years at least that you cannot depend on the government. You cannot depend on nonprofits. You cannot depend on foundations. It's because they essentially are rooted from the bottom line of like money, status, whatever it is. So, okay, yes, you got to vote. You got to like choose your lesser evil, which really sucks, right? And it's a fucked up system that I really am just so. It sucks, and it just enrages me that this is like, here's your choices. And we're so screwed now. Fucking Biden, we're like, oh yay, get fucking Trump out of there. And now all the fucking libs are like, okay, my work is done. And it still sucks. It's still terrible. He's gonna add another 100,000 cops across the country, or is it even 100 million?
Yeah, it's gonna.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Too many. Too many. So, but I guess I say that because I guess I myself have been identifying more in that realm where I'm like, this is not sustainable. I have always tried to look at whatever government programs, whatever, to try and scramble some type of resources for people I've been working with. And it's not fucking enough. There's so many churches, there's so many service providers. Why is it that there's so many out there, but yet here we are? And it's just not the answer. I say that because, we're here trying to connect with people who are being displaced, who are going through just the layers of trauma of like just trying to survive on the streets. And I see the complicity that I know I have fallen into for many years, because I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing my part, and, oh, well, they don't want to they don't want to do what they're supposed to do. And I just see how all our institutions are essentially built to just make sure that you comply and just sort of fit within your cog of the wheel, so that you could be your worker bee, churn out your product for the company, things like that. So I don't know how we start to try to impact that, but I do agree that community is the key to start there. And more people have to be fucking angry. More people have to wake up and pay attention, instead of like turning their noses at people who are living and just thinking they're all fucking drug addicts. They're all, just losers and criminals. That is what, when we're there and people are getting displaced, and then we come upon those people who think, for fun, they should gawk and take pictures and think, oh yeah, this is great. It's really, you really start feeling like, wow, the human race sucks. The human race, it just really makes you feel like, wow, we've lost our humanity. It's really like dire. And how can we try to break out of that whole like, well, I just want my piece of the pie, right? I just want my piece of the pie, and I'm just gonna take care of just my own, and not realize how more of a community makes us safer, right? Like people think, oh, these sweeps, that's what we need to do because, it's going to help our community be safer. But in actuality, it doesn't. It causes more violence. It really, it makes the community less safe. And people don't realize that because they think, oh yeah, it's all cleaned up and I don't see all the garbage or anything.
Yeah, pushed to another neighborhood.
Yeah, it's just shoved and swept under the rug. And I think for us as a group, we're there as like trying to, again, pick up the pieces and try to help those folks who are still left standing or have, salvage whatever belongings they want. But how can we push against this system? And I think we do realize, right? We do realize that there has to be some part as far as working with, I don't know if it's the powers that be, or at least some of the service providers who do have at least more maybe say or impact or whatnot. But I think that's sort of where we're at as a group, trying to figure that out. For us in Stop the Sweeps, we basically follow the lead of what people want to do, and consent is really important, right? Mm-hmm. If a person does not want to take any of the offers that either Hope is giving, which is essentially just like a shelter bed, or like a tiny house village, which is a shed. That's a shed. I hear that from service providers. Well, they don't want to take what I have to offer, so, it's their fault. And,
yeah. As opposed to saying, maybe what I'm offering isn't the right thing for this person.
Exactly. Like, I guess me having been a social worker, I see how the mentality of like, if they are not conforming to what we want them to do, to work within our system here and what we are providing them, then, well, too bad. We go out there because we see that there is a need that's not being fulfilled by service providers, by the government. We're essentially picking up the pieces of those people that are either falling through the cracks, or they don't want to stay in a shelter to get bed bugs, to be assaulted and harassed, and belongings to be stolen, or like they can only bring 2 bags in, or they have to split from their partner. And so we are picking up the pieces.
For every
of
person
those.
that's outside, not in shelter, you'll find a reason for why they don't want to be in shelter, right? Like, I mean, it's not like people just say, oh, I don't want to go into a shelter because I don't know, I love suffering. Mm-hmm. They are saying no because they have a very profound reason to be outside in the winter when it's cold as hell.
Yeah, you've got to think about
what they're...
Yes, like, why can't you switch that thinking of like, there's got to be something majorly messed up with my offers if this person is choosing this? Because everyone's like, well, no one should live like that. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. Why do you feel, why is it that they would prefer to live outside here instead of this, I guess, shelter, enhanced shelter? Even the enhanced shelter is not something that people want. And so, we're forcing people to fit within this, like, the square box, even though it doesn't fit for them. And so, but we blame them. And so I feel like our group, we're there to, yes, not only meet people where they're at, because it's like, hey, we're here to help you in what you want to do, but obviously ensure that they, if they want to talk to any of the service providers that are there, and make sure that they, have that opportunity. And if not, we're there to, just, I guess, pick up the pieces, because these are the folks that fall through the cracks.
Yeah, you said something about, like, it's interesting when you said we follow their lead. And I think that that's where I keep thinking back to, like, radical action. It's like, in the problem itself is the explanation of why it exists. Like, when we talk about the indication, the fact alone that people sleep outside should tell you that shelter isn't adequate. The fact that, like, so many people work backwards and say that clearly sleeping outside is so easy that they must be turning down so many good offers that's where I feel like the context is missing. Because especially after spending the night out on 4th Avenue, I feel like even if I felt unsafe, I might go to a shelter. Like, that was a really hard thing to do. So it's like, you have to, like, realize, like, the existence of people living straight up on the sidewalk tells you that the system is broken, not because they could be choosing that, but because we are providing such disgusting, manipulative, harmful alternatives that people are that's what they're resorting to. I think that in itself explains the failures of the shelter and the housing industry.
Absolutely. The thing I always tell people is, every human being in every nanosecond, we all do this. We pick the option that is best for us, like in every second. Now, it might not be the best option. Like, somebody a ways away might say, that's not going to work out so well for you. But we all do this. Nobody purposely has 2 options and says, I'm going to pick this one because it's going to fuck me up, right? Like, people try to pick the best. So if somebody is choosing to be out on the street, it is telling exactly what you just said. They have already assessed that it is a better option for them to be on the street than to be in the options that are being afforded me through the housing system.
I remember moving a 55-year-old man with neuropathy, and he didn't want to take a shelter because he needed to conform to their rules and not be actively using. And so, here I am helping someone relocate with dead rats on the ground. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening here? How in this country is this fucking happening? It just, like, really fucked me up. And I think that's why, a lot of us continue to do this and show up, because we see, like, this is so utterly fucked up.
Yeah.
And that this is just so wrong of why. And I'm not saying that we have the answer to, answering that why, but it's just so messed up. And I think recently it's just been so hard with these sweeps where you just see the anguish of people being displaced. And there's just simply no reason for this in one of the most affluent cities in the world. Just simply no reason for this. And I think that's why I, at least, am called to this, because I'm just done fucking turning away. I'm done fucking like living in a bubble. I'm done not doing something. And whether it's just simply, helping someone salvage as much of their belongings, and they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. I can't believe, not that I need that thanks. It's just, it's just like fucking being human, it's just having some humanity. And we unfortunately cannot fight against armed police that show up at every sweep to protect the fucking park workers. Like, it's just kind of ridiculous to see this, that they're there to protect them. And so, and unfortunately, because of that, that's why you have a lot of people that will not talk to any of the service providers either, because they're like, the cops are here, I can't stay. Like, it really causes the more chaos. I mean, they just, it's part of the barrier that the city is intentionally putting out there with the police, with parks. It's just ridiculous that people don't see that. They don't see that. And they just see like, oh, well, they just don't want the help. Bullshit. They just don't want to be intimidated and threatened by police. And they do want the outreach. They do want the services. They do want connection. But when they see 7 cops approaching, it scares people and they don't want to stay. We have to imagine, because we are so stuck within like only what we know in this society, and all we know is like, oh, the government can help, or these nonprofits, or whatnot. So we have to really imagine, and I think that's part of the beauty of abolition, that if we don't imagine, then that's our biggest barrier. So I guess what I see, I guess what I imagine is that from the very beginning, that every single family has enough of what they need as far as just being able to thrive, whether it's housing security, food security, job opportunities that are not going to bog them down, but the ability to also live a life of like creativity and freedom and connection to community, and not just working your like grind of to pay the bills. So I guess I imagine that we live in a society where we are all connected, where we know our neighbors, where we know each other, where we can help each other in addressing harms. I mean, look right here. We've got these families and these kids who are just playing and just living. And I guess what I want is just a community where we don't have to fight each other for the scraps of what we're thrown, right? We don't fight each other for that. And we realize that I don't need to, hoard all this stuff, because I know community is going to help me as well. And I don't need to hoard all this money or this food just for me or my family. And that, we're all in this together. And I feel like starting from that and that route, we're going to ward off just the societal ills that we're seeing right now, right? We see that crime, I guess crime in quotations, when you have a community that cares for each other, then you don't have as much crime. When we care for each other, when we can and address those harms instead of just like sweeping them under the rug, or just saying, oh, somebody just needs to go to jail, I guess is sort of maybe what I'm envisioning. And I feel like part of me, I'm like, that doesn't seem like a big ask, right? It doesn't, but why is that so hard? It's because of the fact that we are pitted against each other for the scraps that we're thrown, that we need to always buy this next great thing. You're only worth what the house you live in, or the clothes you wear, or the car you drive. And so I guess my hope is that I imagine a society that we do not live within that, and we are all happy with what we have, and that it is enough. we're not like in this materialistic world. And I know that's digging deep.
I had friends all around. Nobody wants to be by themselves when they're homeless. You know, want to be around people.
Yeah. I actually never heard it said that way, and it makes sense, right? Like you're outside struggling and you don't want to be alone during that. You want to be around people.
Yeah, homeless sucks. Tough. It's hard. I don't know what else to say.
This is a young gentleman that goes by the street name Q. Lily introduced him to me a few weeks ago after the Aurora sweep, the one Lily spoke of earlier in the episode. I wanted to get a better idea of the community that existed there before it was dismantled and how it affected the folks who were displaced. Now, I want to give some quick background for context. Q worked as a union roofer. He fell into homelessness after the double setback of a divorce and losing his job. At work, he had been unable to attend the necessary classes that his employer required of him to take. Currently, his injuries are preventing him from maintaining a solid job, and since COVID arrived, he has had a hard time getting back on track. He's been homeless for about 2.5 years. And was the community, in your opinion, was it functioning as a community?
Yeah. It was people, yeah. It was actually thriving. It was a neighborhood. You know? Different diverse people coming together. Like, it was cool. We'd always help each other out. That's what the main thing was.
Yeah. How many people do you think were living in that? It's a long corridor there.
Yeah, it was like...
How many people would you guess?
At least 100. Maybe a little less. So told us all to leave. It was a lot. It was a row of RVs right there. And tents and houses that we built, mini homes. Like, we built our own mini homes and they didn't say nothing. Like, that land's unincorporated and they took it. They kicked us off. It wasn't even sheriffs that kicked us off. It was cops that came and kicked us off.
Yeah. So you lived in a year in a tent.
Yeah.
In this village.
Yeah.
Can you describe the feeling of living in a village?
It was cool. It's fun. You get together and solve problems, kind of. Try to.
So people would help other people with solving problems such as
food, clothing, help, housing. I mean, just like help with tents and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Like, it was like it was cool. Nobody really stole from each other or nothing. It was good. And then police came and slept us and told us all to leave. And after we had made homes for that long, like a long time, been there a long time, you know. And then people gonna come tell us to leave and tell our shit, our stuff. I don't know why.
So where are you staying?
I don't know. Like, I'm just like there's a camp over there. I'll be staying at. There's a Catholic guy bought me a hotel room. That was cool for like 3 days. And yeah, I don't know yet.
What about your girlfriend? Is she with you?
Yeah, she's right there with me the whole time. Everything I'm explaining, which is crazy. And I can't really work, but I try. It hurts like to work. Like, it hurts my neck, hurts my legs now. So I just hate. I don't like hurting, and it hurts.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
32.
Yep.
And did you grow up in the Seattle area?
Yeah. Right here.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yep. Sure did.
What was in the RV that you lost?
Everything, all my clothes, everything.
So you have nothing now?
I have a backpack. Backpack full of a little bit of my tools. That's about it.
Tools to work on cars?
Yeah.
Right. So you've got a skill on as a mechanic in that way?
I like it. I enjoy it. It's kind of fun. Trying to make things go and then riding them when you do, or driving them when you do, get them going.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a sense of accomplishment.
I guess. Yeah, you're right. But really, it's just a sense of you get to use it. No.
Yeah, it's practical too.
Yeah, very practical. And it always happens. Always mechanical problems always happen, so.
You're 32, you've got a backpack, a girlfriend. What next?
I'm sure try to get money I don't know, just live life.
Are you going to look for another village? Are you going to, because rent, it'd be pretty tough to pay rent.
Well, I mean, yeah, but yeah. If I get my disability check, maybe I could do that, but building another village would be cool. I mean, shoot, just because, I mean, I just don't know where.
Yeah.
I feel like I built that one. No. They tore it down twice.
Tell me what's beautiful that maybe people that are in homes wouldn't see the beauty that you see. What do you see when you're living there?
Well, I don't know about it. I mean, I don't know about other places, but there we were trying to build and establish the spots, mega homes.
Like, tell me some of the little nuances that are beautiful of living there. Like what made it a place that you wanted to be?
The freedom. We just come and go, talk to people. They'd come. The freedom. Just coming and going. Talking to people was always fun.
Did you feel loved there?
I mean, yeah, nice people. I mean, there's nice people in Seattle. We're all nice. Really, if you give faith to humanity, you might be good. You don't judge just by looks. We're all cool. Help.
Don't judge by the looks.
For sure.
A lot of people that are living in homes are going to listen to this. What should people know about sweeps?
Cops are ruthless. And the cops in the city, they're ruthless. They're going to have their way no matter what. And they'll take everything from you. And the sweeps are, I don't know why they're doing them exactly, just to, when they should be giving out housing or helping instead of sweeping and telling them to get out. Like, what are you going to tell us to get out to? We're already homeless. Like, where are we going to go, guys?
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, it's sweeps. They just want to put people in jail, maybe. Maybe that's what it is somehow. I'm not sure. But it's like they sweep us to the left or to the right. It's not like we're going anywhere, really, because we got nowhere to go. And I don't know. Sweeps are no good. They may make you guys look better when you're walking around, looking around, maybe, but it affects people's lives. Tough. Just so you guys could appreciate the landscape or whatnot. Oh, so you guys just have a good view. You guys don't like what you see or something just because of stereotypical habits. I don't know what makes people think things should be a certain way.
Yeah, clean it up, make it go out of sight, out of mind type stuff.
Yeah, clean it up is just what they're worried about. They just don't want anything that looks dirty there, which is an opinion, right?
Because to you, that village was beautiful.
Yeah, it was thriving. It was cool. It's coming up. It was a good neighborhood. Call village, neighborhood, whatever you want.
How has this affected you emotionally?
Oh, it's devastating. It sucks. I have nowhere to go and nothing to do. I mean, nothing to look forward to. I don't know where to go. It sucks. I'm trying to figure it out. But then it separates all the friends that I had down there too. So now we don't have no spot to come hang out, meet up, or reason to come together. We have no reason to come together now. It's kind of hard.
Where did everybody go? Just scattered?
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure.
And do you have a cell phone?
Yeah, I just got one. I mean, I do, but I mean, they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Homeless is just a title. I mean, it's really just like, yeah, if you stay busy all day, it's not like you're homeless. You're doing stuff all day. Every time to go to sleep when it sucks.
I left my conversation with Q asking myself, what would I do if I was in his shoes? If I was really living his life and his available options? How would I know which direction I should go or even what my next steps should be? One of my favorite expressions is, fell off the horse 9 times, got back on 10. But if I was in Q's situation, would I be able to get back on that horse? One of the very good friends I've made getting to know folks living outside is Dizzy. You might remember him from the You Know Me Now episode titled Being Dizzy. If you haven't listened to it, please check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Dizzy has been chronically homeless for many years and has experienced a great deal. Through it all, he has managed to stay thoughtful and positive, and I really value his opinions on these difficult topics. So Dizzy, we've had lots of conversations, and I know you do, in my opinion, you do this good job of balancing the discussion by, well, there's this side, but then there's also this side. And
well, yeah, there always is, You can't just be for letting homeless people just run amok and be where they want to be and do whatever they want to do, because a lot of homeless people are fucked up individuals. And but a lot of them aren't, you know.
As there are fucked up individuals living inside.
Yeah.
Kind of the same.
Yeah. Fucked up homeless people poop on the sidewalk, and fucked up individual people poop in their toilet.
One of the differences. What? So like, let's.
I personally have never pooped on a sidewalk.
Good to know. So what do you do about what you just said, that there has to be some rules about where people can live and can't, and how do you define that? Because you also said in the same breath earlier that everyone needs a place to live.
Yeah.
How do you define that?
You know, I don't know. I know that if this is probably why I'll never have a bunch of money. If I had money like, say, a Bill Gates or something like that, I would just buy a big ass building and let people live in it, you know. A couple simple rules. But then, you know, there's still going to be people that break those rules. They can't even live at the free place, you know. And I mean, eventually with some people, and not a huge quantity of them at all, you know. And I hate to say this, because you say something like this and there's people that are just fully ready to just jump on the bandwagon and do it to everybody. But some homeless people do need to be institutionalized. They're just not going to fit in anywhere. They're just, I don't know if they're mentally ill, or, you know, a lot of times it has to do with addiction, you know, which is a mental illness. But, yeah, it's really tough, you know. It's really tough. I think it's weird, you know, that some people just have so much and some people have nothing, you know.
Yeah.
It's just so...
It's unconscionable. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and it, like, okay, in Seattle, we have our homeless problem, you know, but like in the 90s, there were homeless people, but you could still get a place to live for $400 or $600, you know, a room somewhere, in a house, or like some shitty little studio apartment, you know, for somewhere between $400 and $800,
Yeah.
you know?
Basement apartment type
Yeah,
thing.
or something, you know? But like the place on Capitol Hill where me and a guy used to pay $600 a month for this 2-bedroom, and we'd rent out this one hall closet was so big that we'd rent that out for like $100, you know, to whoever, you know.
What year?
That apartment now is like $3,000 a month.
Yeah. What year was it when it was?
That was like
600?
92.
Yeah.
But I mean, it stayed that way it got renovated, I think, around 2000 or something, you know, and just rents jacked up, you know.
So, Dizzy, what should the city do? Right? Like, they're stuck in this rock and a hard spot of businesses and neighborhoods saying, get this out of my face.
Another thing I don't understand is how, okay, there's like how many homeless people in Seattle? Do you remember what the last count was or something? Roughly?
I always, to be honest, I mix up the Seattle and King County counts, but
one.
But so King County, I think it was like 40,000 people.
Okay, 40,000 people, and they'll put $40 million in the problem. It seems if you took those 40,000 people and divided that $40 million between them, they could all get a place to live.
Yeah.
But they can't solve it with 40 million, or with however many millions of dollars. And like when you hear the amount that they put into it, it's like, there's no way you can't get a place for all these people with that money.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess it's all going to bureaucracy, or, you know.
Some of it, but also, as you also know, the issue is more complicated than just housing. There's addiction, there's mental health.
Yeah.
There's, you know, crime. There's just a whole gambit of issues that
I am
take
kind
money.
of for the housing first concept, though.
Yep.
But there has to be, I guess, some limit, you know, like, okay, let's say we do housing first and everybody gets housed. There's people that are going to get kicked out of that. There's people that are going to leave that. There's people that are still going to end up homeless. Even if you house everybody, there's still people that are going to end up homeless one way or another, you know? And what do you do then?
So back to the question of, the city is pretty aggressively sweeping right now.
Are they?
Under the new mayor, right? They're really, I actually just, this.
And what are they doing with those people?
Well, it's the same as you said earlier. They're promising to get them into housing, but then a small amount go into housing.
Yeah.
So the question is, you know, for the city, I know that you can't just say black and white, sweeps or no sweeps. I know it's complicated, but what do you do? You know, because the other thing about sweeps, which we know is, people are finding these tucked away places to set up villages. The one on Aurora and 125th that just got swept, super tucked away between an embankment and a auto parts junkyard.
Was it a homeless camp? Yeah.
It was a homeless camp, and it got swept, and it was super out of the way, right? Just off Aurora, 125th.
It must have been a nuisance to somebody, though, for them to even find out about it.
Absolutely, I'm sure that's true. But the question is, do you sweep or don't you sweep? And one of the issues I could see that you could say, you could take a stand on, not saying it's right, but you could take a stand and say, hey, no sweeps, and where the villages are, we are going to take resources to help those people. We're going to set up potty Santa can types. We're going to provide garbage cans. And however the business or the neighborhood's getting impacted, we're going to use funds to try to alleviate that impact until we can get all of these people housed.
Or also, you got to be able to...
Is that fair?
It's somewhat fair, but you also have to tell the people, okay, we're going to do this. Here's a chance. You get one more strike, one more time of you fucking this up, and then the time after that, you're gone.
And
we're
what
sweeping
is,
you.
And
because I mean, it'd be if they warned them and gave them a chance. Look, there's syringes all over the place. There's crime going on here. Either police yourselves, take care of the fuck ups, or we're going to toss you out, And if they at least gave them a chance, to clean it up. I mean, a lot of them would throw that away, but I'm sure there's some where some people would go, I got my little thing here, and I really don't want to lose it, and.
What, like you said, a percentage will take it, but probably I would guess, like let's say you had 100 people at an encampment like that, maybe 25 could walk into housing and make it work. Like that's a random guess, right?
Yeah.
But I would say 75 would be in some state of being unable to actually act on any kind of hand up because the hand up isn't quite appropriate or exactly what they need in that moment.
Or they'd act on it and then trade it for dope, or whatever,
Yeah, so you get this more than 50% of the people in that encampment that are not going to be able to fit.
I know of a place downtown where they've housed a bunch of homeless people there, and a friend of mine at one time was a drug dealer there, and so he was acquiring things because he would trade things for drugs, and he ended up renting another homeless person's apartment to store shit in, and trade for drugs. So they're and then they're out on the street,
Yeah.
because they've sold their apartment to a drug dealer.
Yeah. Are we just always going to have this problem? And it's always going to be like a shell game? You're just kind of moving stuff around and a certain percentage?
I don't know. Have we always had this problem in one way or another?
Yeah, it's a good question. You just said in the 90s we certainly didn't.
Well, I mean, there were homeless people, but we didn't have the scale of this problem. But
no, I grew up here, and we never had this problem until probably starting 15, 20 years ago. The other side of this is that sweeps are hugely traumatic for people. They're really hurtful,
and they're not free either.
And they're not free. They're extremely costly. On the Aurora sweep, I would guess there might have been 50 cops there.
Yeah.
They weren't there volunteering.
Yeah, well, yeah. I wonder how many of them were on overtime. Well, I mean, they're down 300 officers right now, too, so.
Yeah. I wonder also, how differently we would view encampments if the city provided garbage and Santa cans. I mean, I wonder if people would get, and sharps containers. I wonder if people would get as upset and make the phone calls, the constant calls to the city about needing to do something if in fact garbage, sharps containers, and Santa cans were actually provided to those encampments.
I mean, you could provide all that, and people are if they are in fact committing crime, if they're still committing crime to get their dope money, that's not going to make any difference, or if. Now, there's this one place where I go to, and there's this woman there who's, she constantly asks me for a cigarette or some change or something, and I give it to her. But at first I would tell her no, but then I just decided to have some compassion for her. But she's kind of messed up, and her face is usually dirty with a few sores on, and that there's probably some people who just are appalled by that, who would complain, I mean, she's really not hurting anybody but herself, but I don't know. These questions are like, I know this. Stupid microphone. Always makes you conscious about things. We're all here for such a short time. We really don't have time to be shitty to each other.
It's gonna make me cry now, my friend. Yeah, that's the honest truth. We don't have time to be shitty to each other. Thank you for saying that.
Okay, cut. I hate your guts.
I think the problem with sweeps, quite frankly, the problem with homelessness, it's so fucking complex that it kind of defies standard solutions, and I think sometimes we forget that we need to set some bars, some lines in the sand that actually talk about what you just said. Like, okay, we don't know how to solve it. It is complex. People are complex.
It was complex before it was chronic, and now there's so much of it.
Yep, but I think one of the things that we have to say is, throughout searching for the solution, we can't be shitty to each other. We got to hold a bar, a certain height of the bar that says, look, we might not be able to figure this out as quickly as we need or want to for everybody on both sides, but in the process, we can't be shitty to each other.
Yeah, especially of us that have the privilege to not be shitty, I mean, like, homeless people can be shitty too, but a lot of times until, like, some kindness is visited upon them, they don't even know they're being shitty. They just think they're grappling with the world,
Yep. I've thought a lot about that with regards to being compassionate. When you have so much extra, it's easy to be compassionate. Like, you can even get a little high and mighty on yourself by saying, look how good I am.
Yeah.
But will you be that good when you have your basic needs taken from you? Can you still be good? And I think we have to all remember that, is that privilege and resources allow you to be compassionate. And I think thinking about that is important. Like, do I need to with all my privilege, do I need to make you leave where you're setting up home and trying to survive? And I'm not saying that we should just let everybody be wherever they want.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not being shitty to each other, I think, is a really important line to hold.
Yep. Until you walk around in somebody else's shoes. It's not as simple as saying, get a job, bum. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
Okay, can I go now?
Dizzy, I love you, buddy. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. I want to end by leaving you with an interesting comment to ponder from former Seattle Mayor Mike McGinn, who said the following in the documentary film Trickle Downtown.
Something really fundamental has happened that I don't get, which is, if you look at any culture, human culture, for millennia and upon millennia, people were able to, where they lived, construct shelter out of the materials at hand to take care of themselves. Whether it was a peat and mud house in, Ireland, or a teepee, or made of mud or made of wood, whatever it was, you could do that. We've literally made that illegal in the city of Seattle. We've made that illegal across the country. If you want to build something to shelter people, you have to get a permit, you got to follow the rules, you got to follow the code, you got to spend a lot of money. And we tell people, well, you can't do that. And, you can only build so much housing in certain places. So how did we get to a point in our society where you can't build a house? Like, what's more human than that? I don't know, friendship, companionship, food, But this is what people do. We come together and we build communities, and that includes shelter. This is what we do. This is what we're genetically designed to do. And we've said, well, if you're not wealthy enough, if you can't get a house like the one I'm sitting in right now, or if you can't get an apartment building that meets our criteria, not those dingy single-room occupancy hotels, but a nice apartment building, those are the ones we want, and a nice single family. If you can't build that and afford that, you can't have anything. That's what we've come to in our society, and that's a tremendous failure. It's a moral failure, it's a community failure, it's a political failure, but it's a failure at every level when we basically say, you don't deserve a place to live because you don't meet our standards.
You Know Me Now podcast is produced, written, and edited by Tomas Bernatsky and me, Rex Holbein. We would like to give a big thank you to Lily, Danae, Kimberly, Q, and Dizzy, as well as the anonymous volunteers from Stop the Sweeps Seattle Mutual Aid Group for taking the time to speak to us. You Know Me Now has a Facebook page where you can join the conversation and a website at www.youknowmenow.com, where you can see photos and videos of the Aurora Sweep, as well as put faces to the voices you heard today. Under the episode page, we included links to Seattle-based organizations and aid groups where you can get involved by volunteering your time and/or donating needed supplies.